Hello and welcome back to the studio. Today's drawing is going to be different as far as the content is concerned. I'm actually going to be doing, it's primarily a painting of an old truck. And the painting is based on a photograph that was taken by Juan Browne. He has a YouTube channel. It's bloncolirio. And I'll link to that channel below. This is a photo he took about a week ago of an old car rally in Northern California. It's a beat up old Ford truck. That's about all I know about the vehicle. I just know it's a neat truck because since it's not a new car, it's got a lot of patina to it, which as an artist is a lot more interesting to paint. So he had a little video where he was showing off the vehicles, and I said, I just like the look of the truck. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and do a painting of it. So without any further ado, we're going to get into it. So I hope you enjoy this one. This will be, like I said, this is different content. Same techniques apply. So today's painting is multi-layered, and what I'm doing here is just putting down that first layer. It's a series of light passes. I'm just putting down the base colors of the different parts of the truck and defining the forms and the shading and the shapes that are involved. This particular style of painting, the subject matter requires a great deal of concentration. There's just a lot of little tiny details, and you can see it in just a moment. I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing that you can actually see. I noticed I was sticking my tongue out at this one point, so I thought that was rather funny. So I do a lot of referring to the photo, the reference photo, more at the start and the end of the painting process. So less so in the middle, and in the middle it tends to be a little more fluid, although I must say that with this painting, I was basically referencing that photo for most of it, whether it be figuring out the relationship of the different elements or just trying to hone in on the color. But most of the time when I'm referencing a photo, it's kind of a bell curve, a reverse bell curve, where there's a lot of reference at the beginning and a lot of reference at the end. And then I just start building up the layers of the painting. So just starting to add a little richer colors, a little more pigment in the washes. And there's a lot of layers to this particular painting. Trying to cut down the size of this video was interesting just because of the number of layers and details involved. Just a lot of detail, very intensive. I can actually feel myself getting kind of tense, just really wrapping up around the painting and just really getting in there and trying to catch every little piece of detail. Subject matter like this involves a lot of use of smaller brushes, and I basically have to remind myself that I'm not a camera. I am an artist, and I'm trying to get the impression of the piece rather than getting too wrapped up in the detail. I try and combat this by not fixating on one point of the painting, moving around the piece and allowing myself some artistic license as far as color and form where possible. So I sound like a broken record here for a moment, but this subject matter takes a lot of detail, and it starts to feel less like painting and more like model making or jewelry making, maybe even like painting little figurines, just because I spend so much time with little elements and little brushes. It can be fun, but it can be really tiring. I think to do over again, I probably would not have chosen this subject matter for a daily, one a day task that I'm doing this month. This is the fun part. this is where I start to add in some of the deeper shadows. Because of the subject matter, the older vehicles have a lot of elements to them that kind of reach out from the main form. So when they're hit with this oblique angle of sunlight, you get to really play with the interaction between the elements, and it really gives the painting a lot of depth that you wouldn't get with, say, a modern car. So I really think that's the fun part of an older vehicle. And then after I work in those shadows, I'm doing little shadows here and there, but I'm also starting to add little elements of texture. It's an old vehicle, so it gets beat up, and it wouldn't look right if it looked shiny. So I start to add just little elements of imperfections, and then also starting to get into the headlights, which that was an interesting challenge in of itself. Now I start moving on to preparing for the undercarriage shadows and for getting the real deep colors on the windscreen. I'm adding elements of detail that will actually get covered up by the subsequent layers, the deeper layers. And the reason I'm doing this is because with watercolor, it's far better to work from thinner layers to thicker layers, because each time you make a pass over an area, you stand a chance of disturbing previous washes or strokes. So, and it was interesting with the windscreen, I'm not painting reflections, I'm actually painting a lot of the inside details. There isn't much of a reflection on the windscreen itself. So now I'm really getting into the really dark shadows, and this is when the piece really starts to come into its own. The windscreen took quite a bit of time just to get the different elements. It's like when you're painting metal, you don't really paint the object, you paint the reflections. And to a certain extent, it was true with the windscreen here as well. Whenever I start painting really deep washes, I try to have a lot of paint mixed up in advance. And I try and double what I think I'm going to need, because even now I can find myself where I'm running short. For this one, because it's such a deep wash, I actually decided to go with two mixes. So one is a thinner mix like I would do for a normal wash, and the other one is a really, really deep mix. And what I actually ended up doing was I would use the thin mix to load the brush, and then I would just get the real thick mix on the tip of the brush for, especially when I'm doing detail work with a little tiny brush. I would get the detail in, and then I would come back. You see two brushes I'm holding. I actually do the detail work with the smaller brush, kind of outline the area, and then I come back and with the larger brush and paint in. And at the end of a long day, I finally got to put in the shadow cast on the ground, and I put in just little elements of the roadbed. I didn't go crazy at this point because I did want to keep the overall feel of the painting a bit Spartan. So adding just a little bit of dust from the rear tire to give that feeling of the fact that the truck is moving, and then just the last little bits defining the corners of the boxes on the back. Because I don't have really a background per se, I kind of cheat at this point, and I just add little bits of pigment just to define the edges of those boxes so they stand out just a little bit more. So that was that was quite a painting to do. There was no ink work at all. I was thinking I was going to do some, but there wasn't. Like I said earlier in the video, I kind of wish I hadn't have done this particular one for this challenge because it was far more than I should have taken on for a one-day thing. In fact, this is the second day where I'm just trying to wrap it up and notice that the clothing has changed. But yeah, I love doing these, but I hate doing these. The amount of effort involved is pretty intense. It's a very physical form of painting for me because I get so wrapped up in the painting. I actually wrap myself around the painting at times. And just trying to edit this video was frustrating because there were times when I didn't have a camera angle because I was just so engrossed in what I was doing. So yeah, far more than I was anticipating to do, but I am happy with what the results were. Like I said, I alluded to in a previous video, this is something I don't do very often, but when I do them, they tend to come out really good. So yeah, I hope you like this. It's a little different from what I usually do. If you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up. As always, leave comments below. I love to get feedback on these things. I'd love to hear what you think of this particular style of painting. Let's see. If you would do me a great favor, if you like these videos, I would really appreciate it if you share these on, I post to Facebook. So if you see those posts on Facebook, if you would share those, that would help me out a great deal. Even if we know the same people, people don't always see when I post just because of the nature of social media anymore. So yeah, if you do like these videos, if you want to continue to see them, it would help me out a great deal if you would share them so that other people can see them as well. With that, yeah, thumbs up if you like it, and subscribe if you haven't, because I'm trying to put out a video today, and yeah, if you want to see more, that's a good way to see them. Hit the little bell icon on YouTube next to the subscribe button so that you actually get a notification. And with that, I hope you like this video. I hope you've had a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.